Cool. All right. Let me just let the players know. And then can you guys just in the comments or something let me know if my audio is coming through okay? And yeah, I think the players are ready to get going. Let's see. Cool. So we have uh let's see. So I think Franz is on the screen at the top. He is playing a emerald amethyst deck. So that's gonna be focused on questing and racing a control deck. And amethyst helps with his card draw. Where Lao is running kind of his signature item control deck, Ruby Sapphire. And so once again, this will be a matchup to see if Franz can get through and quest enough and put the pressure on Lao, or will Lao be able to stabilize? And we have seen before in Lao's one of Lao's matches, his deck has a little bit of a problem dealing with Emerald, just because he has kind of all of his items like the sword and the apple that deals with villains and princesses. But Emerald really doesn't run too many villains or princesses. So we'll see it kind of how Lao deals with the Emerald matchup again. And then just double checking, everyone on the main stage can hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up, or however you can kind of signal, and then that is good. We so once again kind of mentioning this is really last minute stuff, so we haven't really had time to kind of set things up and test it, but we want to just make sure the players get a chance to kind of play when they're able to seamlessly, and they were kind enough to just let me know that they were playing, and I was able to hop on. So it is awesome. So Lao kind of starts his ramp off with Grammatala. Grammatala is a 1/1 or a 2-cost 1/1 character that whenever it becomes banished, you can move it back into your inkwell. And so he Lao is probably gonna try to figure out some way of getting Grammatala into his inkwell now that he's played it out. Whether it's by questing and making his opponent attack into it, or just running Grammatala into a character. But Franz has played Flynn Rider, one of the characters where you don't want to run Grammatala into, because Franz's ability is whenever a character challenges Flynn Rider, that player needs to discard a card. So Flynn Rider is a really great value card that you can always kind of just quest with, knowing that opponents really don't want to run into Flynn. Cool. Taking a look at the chat. Awesome. Thank you for the message that you can hear me fine. So that's one less technical thing. Glad we don't have to deal with. So let's see. And so we can see that Lao has a couple of Be Prepareds in his hand, which is going to be really nice, especially against Franz's Cuscos. So Be Prepared is a card that just destroys all characters on both sides of the board. And Cusco has a ward ability, which means that opponent can't target Cusco, and he quests for a lot of lore. He quests for 3, which in that case, like if you can't kind of target the Cusco with a Dragonfire or some other removal, um, it's kind of a guaranteed 3 lore on your opponent's side of the field. And so Be Prepared is a great way because it's not targeted removal. It will still destroy the Cusco even though it has ward. Okay, so we see that Lao gets the Flynn Rider off the board by running the Maui into it, discarding his Sword of Truth. Since very likely Lao sees that he's going to be playing Emerald, it's the Sword of Truth probably isn't going to be able to target too many villains. However, I do think that John Silver is a villain. So Lau doesn't know that his opponent has a lot of John Silvers in his hand, but if he did, he might have wanted to keep maybe a Sword of Truth. But he Lau has plenty of removal in the forms of Be Prepared. But we can see one big issue with Lao's deck is constantly going to be just getting enough card draw and getting high ink. All like that Maleficent right now costs 9 ink. And it's the only inkable card in Lao's hand, so it really is difficult. Lao is very likely gonna have to ink that Maleficent, and even kind of also run Grammatala into his opponent's Maleficent just to get more ink on his side of the board. It's part of why Amethyst is so good is it has so many ways of replenishing your hand. So on Fran's side of the board, Emerald, he's playing Emerald Amethyst, and Emerald doesn't have any card, or other than I guess the Mad Hatter, Emerald doesn't have consistent card draw. But just the mere fact that Franz is playing Amethyst means he has access to Maleficents, the friends on the other sides that we can see he has in his hand. Um, and so it really we can see by the hand size, Franz has plenty of cards in his hand, whereas Lao is definitely struggling. The way Lao really needs to get going is he needs to have items and the Maurice online, and that's really the only way for Lao to get that card draw that he needs to kind of go off. So we'll see if he's able to get that fast enough online, especially against a pretty aggressive Emerald Amethyst deck being played by Franz here. Yep. And we see Franz just singing Friends on the Other Side with Maleficent. When you sing a song, you can Friends on the Other Side costs 3 to play normally. But it is a song which has the optional ability where if you have a character that costs 3 or more on the field, you can exert that character instead in order to play a song for without spending any ink. And so that's what Franz did with the Maleficent. He exerted him to play Friends on the Other Side, which draws him 2 cards, and still has enough ink to play out the Mad Hatter here. Lao drew into a Mickey, which is great. Essentially, what Mickey does is it's a ramp card. It's the Sapphire's equivalent of drawing cards. The idea here is if you can put a card from the top of your deck into the inkwell, it's essentially like drawing a card and using it as ink. And so while Sapphire doesn't really have card draw, it has ramp, which essentially does an equivalent job of card draw if you can do it well. Mm. And we see Franz just that Maleficent on board is just doing so much work. It's sung 2 friends on the other side so far, which essentially gives Franz 4 additional cards in his hand without having to spend any ink to do so. And with that Mad Hatter on board questing for 3, I wonder if Franz is thinking about an opponent's be prepared, and clearly he is, because he, instead of running out like a Cusco or another Mad Hatter or something that quests for 3, he just runs out a simple Jafar and puts a little bit more pressure on the opponent. Now all of his characters quest for a total of 5, and essentially he's just saying, hey, my opponent, you gotta play Be Prepared. I'm not gonna run too many cards out. I'm gonna keep plenty of gas in my hand, but enough to threaten questing fairly quickly. And so once you play a Be Prepared, now I'm gonna play out some more cards in my hand, right? So yeah, the Cusco after Be Prepared is pretty classic, because you're hoping your opponent only has one Be Prepared in their hand, and so after they play it, your opponent likely doesn't have another Be Prepared, and Cusco's Ward ability will protect him from any other card. So now it's interesting to see what Lao does. I think Lao may play out the Robin Hood. It gives him a card draw, and its 4 attack is enough to kill the Cusco once it quests. I'm thinking that Lao probably doesn't want to use a Be Prepared on an empty board here. And that's exactly what he does. He plays the Robin Hood. His ability is, if you have fewer cards in your hand than your opponent, he lets you draw 1 card. It's kind of like stealing from the rich. Opponent has a lot of cards in his hand and giving to the poor, you who don't have too many cards in your hand, right? So that's his kind of flavor text and ability. And because Lao only had 3 cards after playing the Robin Hood, and his opponent had 6, he was able to draw a card and use that card as ink there to kind of get slowly generate towards his removal, such as Maleficent and Hades. He already has enough ink to play out the Hades, and so now we definitely start seeing kind of Lao having the ability to interact with his opponent's board a little bit more, though it's still going to be pretty tricky, just because his opponent right now has a few more cards in his hand than Lao does. But I think we're gonna see the Robin Hood run into Cusco. Another reason why Cusco is so great is not only does he have the ward ability, but he also has the no touchy ability, which means any character that you use to kill the Cusco also dies themselves. And so Robin Hood, even though he has 4 health and Cusco only does 2 damage, because Robin Hood is going to kill the Cusco, Cusco is going to essentially bounce that right back and kill Robin Hood himself. And so Robin Hood is going to die, but then I think Lao is probably going to figure out some way to remove that Hans from the board, because Hans also quests for 3. And right now, Franz's game plan is pretty simple. Just realize that his opponent has probably some removal in his hand, and force his opponent to have to draw into those removal. Just play out 1 big creature, big threat. Kind of make sure that the Be Prepared isn't going to be super devastating, and just hope that opponent can always top deck the best cards to deal with all of the situation that Franz is going to pose of his opponent here. Yep. And then Lao just runs out the Hades, which puts the Hans into Franz's Inkwell. Notably, Hades ability, Hades, a lot of Sapphire abilities put at least for removal, rather than putting the character into the discard pile and essentially banishing it, it puts that character into your opponent's inkwell, such as Let It Go and Hades. And so his flavor text there is there a downside to this? Which is pretty ironic, because sometimes giving your opponent additional ink and ramp can be a downside. But for a control deck in general, you're pretty okay with putting your opponent's characters into the inkwell. And an added benefit of that is against certain deck archetypes such as Amber, where you have the ability to kind of return cards from your discard pile back into your hand. Um, Putting a character into your opponent's inkwell means that they can no longer part of your world, which is an action that lets you return a discard or card in your discard pile back into your hand, or Hades, the 4-cost character, can also do the same thing. So now that option is essentially taken away from the opponent if you directly place a character into your opponent's inkwell. So definitely pros and cons with that unique sort of removal archetype. So now I wonder if we're just gonna see either a Maleficent come down or a Dragonfire, because once again that Mad Hatter is important enough to remove. And we do see the Maleficent come down to remove that Mad Hatter, and then Lao is able to start questing, and he's going to be putting some really heavy hitters on board. We'll see if Franz, and I know Franz is a big fan of the John Silvers, so I wonder if the John Silver will be able to do some good work preventing his opponent from questing here. But we do see Franz first questing with the Yzma, and Yzma's ability lets him take a look at the top card of his deck and decide whether he wants to keep it as his next draw or put it onto the bottom of his deck. And so Franz saw that he has a Genie on top of his deck, which is a great card, and so he decided to keep it on top of his deck. However, it's interesting because so what Genie does is it can return a character back to a player's hand, but both of Lao's characters do something when they get played, which really isn't kind of good to kind of return back to Lao's hand, because essentially you're just giving Lao additional removal. And so once again we see Lao playing the Dragonfire, getting rid of that John Silver. So John Silver's ability is whenever he comes into play or when he quests, he can give an opposing character, or I think it might just be any character, but at least you want to give an opposing character Reckless. And what Reckless means is during that player's turn, their Reckless characters cannot quest. And on top of that, if they can attack, they must do so. And so that's part of the reason why we saw Hades with the Reckless attack into the card that Franz had before John Silver. The Yzma there. Because Yzma quested there. So once again, Lao has a pretty scary board, but we can see the Zeus come down. Zeus, on top of being a character that can quest for 2, also has Rush, which means that the turn he plays, he can attack, and so that's how Zeus was able to remove Hades from Lao's side of the board there. So now Lao is rapidly closing in on the 20 lore with his Maleficent. So I wonder what yeah, so Franz plays the John Silver, which gives Maleficent Reckless, which means that Maleficent can't quest, and can't get Lao closer to the 20 this turn. And then Maleficent cannot attack into the genie because genie has evasive, and so essentially he's delegated to just being a um, model dragon on for this turn on the board. So we do see a Hades. So you know what? What Lao can do is sing "Be Prepared." So quest with Grammatella and singing "Be Prepared," and then that still gives him enough ink to do some other stuff. But the issue with that play is that Lao really wants to save his Hades to make an impactful play. Though what we can see as commentators in from the hand is honestly because of Franz's two Cuscos that the Hades cannot interact with. It might be better just to play out the Hades and just try to quest with him and try to get to 20. Though now that kind of I mentioned it, Franz has a pretty scary next couple of turns. So I wonder how much Lao wants to save that Be Prepared because we know the next two turns Franz is gonna play out both of his Cuscos, right? So it might be well, I still think Lao has to sing the Be Prepared right now. Otherwise Lao can't really do much. And Franz is threatening a lot of lore, 6 lore on his side of the board. Yep, and that's what Lao does. And so he has 9 ink to play with. Yep, still 9 ink. The apple. Oh, okay. Oh boy, yeah. The Cuscos are gonna kind of, I think, win Franz the game. And Cuscos are great. Cusco is the one card where like control players have just such a tough time dealing with. Um, yeah. And I think the only thing like I think some of the best draws for Lao would probably be the Maui right now. Or something that can deal 4 damage to the Cusco. And Franz is just going to kind of say, "Hey, you played out 2 Be Prepareds. I don't think you have another Be Prepared in hand. I'm just gonna run out another Zeus and really pressure the board." But that does run into the Hades. Um, so Franz is gonna be at 16. He's probably, I don't know if Franz is gonna try to run out the Mad Hatter or if he's gonna run out his second Cusco. If he does run out his second Cusco, it really is kind of gambling that Lao does not have a Be Prepared in his hand. Um, which we know he doesn't. But I think at this point, honestly, if Jasper is not a villain, which I don't think he is, I think he's a henchman. Then Franz might just play out the Jasper because he's gonna be at 16, and Jasper plus Cusco on board is going to be enough. But oh, okay, so Franz is gonna play out even better the Jasper and the Mad Hatter because now really a single removal won't be able to kind of stop Franz. And essentially, what Franz is saying is you need another Be Prepared. And if you don't have the Be Prepared, I win. If you do have a Be Prepared, I still have another Cusco in my hand to play out. And so, yep, it is. I think Franz has game 1 in this series. It was a lot closer than I would have thought, though. Lao was definitely able to control quite a bit once he got enough ink. Yeah. So on to game 2. Yeah, I wonder if either of the players are going to now with additional information about their matchups. I don't know if Lau had played Franz before in the Swiss tournament, but now he definitely knows the type of deck that he's running into. I wonder if Lau's going to kind of make any adjustments here. Um, we can see that he got lots of high cost cards that he's gonna just mulligan away. Very clearly, he's gonna put away the Maleficents, probably the Uninkables. Yep, and he really wants to get Ramp. I think. If it were me, I would probably even potentially toss that shield. It really doesn't do much. And really try to get some more of those Mickeys. Lau did get the Grandma Tala. Um, and I wasn't able to keep track. Oh, and interesting, Lau decided to play second and draw first. So typically, how a match goes is that the loser of each game decides whether or not the first game is decided based off of a dice roll, but after that, the loser of each game decides whether or not they want to play first. Or draw first. So the player who plays first gets to ink and play out card first. The player who gets to draw first goes second, but they get to draw a card after their initial 7 cards that they draw. The player who plays first does not get that additional draw. So maybe Lau thinks he needs some additional draw in order to kind of get to the 7 ink and his kind of removal interaction. And so that's why Lau I chose to go second. I'm sure you won't be seeing any complaints from Franz. As a kind of rushy type deck, he absolutely would want to always go first. Yep, and so we see pretty similar Flynn Rider come down. Flynn Rider is one of the best quick early game cards that can quest for 2 lore and really put pressure on your opponent right from the get-go. And he's so pesky to deal with too, because if an opponent once again attacks into the Flynn Rider, they need to discard a card. So opponent really doesn't have much incentive, but at the same time they can't keep on letting the Flynn Rider quest out for 2 lore. Okay. We see the good news for Lau is that he does have a fishbone quill. And that will allow him to ink some of his uninkable cards and just get to his be prepared a little bit faster. So that is good. But I think what Lau really needs, once again, his deck is really based off of comboing with the Maurice. Maurice is a pretty high expensive character. I think he's 6. He's a 6 cost character, but his ability is whenever you play an item, you get to draw a card. So that's a great way for Lau to really kind of get going. But nope, Lau instead chooses to ink his fishbone quill. Which is interesting because now he only has the shield and the Robin Hood to kind of ink off of, and that's not enough to get him to the 7 lore for 7 ink for the Be Prepareds. We see the Zeus come out from Franz. Once again, Franz is just playing him as a 2 character that can quest for 2 lore. Even though Zeus does have the additional benefit of being able to attack the turn he comes down. Right now, Franz is just trying to pressure and get to that 20 lore as soon as he can. And on turn 5, playing out a Mad Hatter or a Cusco is just going to be great. I think it's going to be the Cusco. Nope. It's gonna be a Mad Hatter. Okay. So yeah, now Franz has 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lore on the board. and Franz, after he quests with the Zeus, Jasper, and Flynn Rider, is already gonna be at 10. So Franz is threatening to be at 18 next turn. And I mean, it's not game over because we can see that Lao has 3 B prepareds in his hand, but it's still gonna be really tough to when an aggressive deck gets to 18. It's going to be kind of you're on the edge of defeat there, but the 3B prepared's really putting some good work, especially because I think after the first Be Prepared, Franz is probably going to play out Cusco, and the second Be Prepared will take right care of him. So the issue though is Franz is also drawing cards, and so at 18, whenever Franz draws a card, he can play it down if it quests for 2 or more lore. It's a must. It's an what's the word, like immediate threat that you need to play removal to get rid of. So in that case, we see him draw a Befuddle, which isn't a character that can quest for 2 lore, which is good for Lao, but it's still very dicey. So, yep, Lao, first be prepared, and we can see Franz is already starting to remove damage from his character. Yeah, he knows that's coming down. But what he probably doesn't know is that there's 2 more right on the backs of him. So Cusco it's gonna run into another be prepared. But now Lao can start doing a little bit more. Like if he can ink something and play develop the brain. And yeah, it's kind of funny watching the players' interactions. We can't hear them and what they're saying, but just by virtue of Franz moving Cusco off the board means clearly the game isn't over yet, which means by necessity, Lao needs to have another Be Prepared in his hand. And so Franz was already moving the Cusco into his graveyard there. Oh, that is also a very good news for Lao because Franz drew into another character that can quest for 2. So now, if Franz plays a genie, Lao actually has a Dragonfire to deal with it. He can save that Be Prepared for a final Cusco, if or at least like another Cusco if Franz has. So I think relatively speaking, for the next 2 or 3 turns, Lao has kind of stabilized a little bit. The interesting thing is, I wonder if we're gonna see Lao allowing that Jasper to quest. No, so he's just using the Dragonfire on that, and passing. That Mad Hatter is a great card. Yup, immediately you see that come down. And I think oh, okay, so Lao was really hoping for a Hades there. Because a Hades would have allowed him to remove it. So we got one more Be Prepared. Game isn't quite over yet, but it's gonna definitely be rough. Because now what we know is that if Franz plays out the genie, but Franz is going to play out the Mother Gotho, which still quests for 2, which is enough. So now Lao really needs a removal. I don't think that does it. Even if he inks the Shield of Virtue and plays out the Robin Hood to give him a card draw, I don't think there's any card because that would mean he's at 5. Oh, I guess a Dragonfire would. Oh, I forgot. Mother Gotho is a villain, isn't she? Oh, the one time the Sword of Truth really came in clutch there. I forgot. So that is an excellent spot. because Mother Gothel is a villain, that sort of truth is a removal to be able to get rid of it. So, and now I think what Lao really wants it was to save those items to kind of combo off of a Maurice. But we can see that Franz is just gonna probably play the genie. Maybe not. I was about to say maybe he doesn't want to bounce the Robin Hood back, but nope, he decides to do that. And just in time to draw into a Maleficent to kill the genie. That was a good top deck there. And so notably, Lao did not ink a card. I guess he really wants to save the shield for some particular reason. But maybe we'll see how he decides to pilot the deck. And that's a great top deck. Man, Lao is just living by his whiskers. Top decking removal after needed removal. And Franz has to be pretty frustrated about just the great top decks that Lao's been getting. But hey, that's the name of the game. Especially when you're playing against a control that runs the Maleficents and the Hades. So we'll see kind of if kind of that continues. Franz is probably gonna play out the Hans, continue just to threaten um lethal. No, he is gonna play out both. He has seen 3 be prepared, so I bet he's feeling pretty confident that there won't be another be prepared. That Mickey is not, so Lao has a couple of outs. Lao needs the apple. Because with the apple you can exert some of your opponent's characters. Or Lao needs just normal removal from a Dragonfire. I think Lao, because if he plays out the Robin Hood, he only has 3 ink to play with, and I don't think there's any removal for 3 ink realistically. Um, but there might be something. Maybe an apple is nope, and that's game. So that's kind of how quickly just an aggro deck can kind of run over um the opponent. So that also shows be prepared that kind of went into ink from Mickey Mouse. One notable thing about kind of the blue Sapphire ramp cards is when they put a card from your deck into your inkwell, it goes in completely face down. So neither player really knows. Ironically enough, even the player who owns or who played the Mickey for ramp does not know what goes into their inkwell. And so I think it's a deliberate part of kind of the game design that at some stage of the game, players may have cards in their inkwell that they have no knowledge of. And so it really kind of adds a little bit of variability. Otherwise, by knowing your deck and knowing your discard pile and hand, you know exactly what cards are left. But if a random card can go from your deck face down into the inkwell, that could be any card. And so it adds a little bit of kind of variance, the unknown into the game there. Cool. So that was a 2-0 win for Franz. And we will see if the players want to join us on the main stage. And we will invite them to kind of give us their thoughts there. Let's see. So we have Okay, so neither of the players are there yet. Right, just sent a message to both of the players. And we'll see if we get them. They're probably still discussing and talking about their decks and their matchups there, but definitely I think the from what I can see, Lao's deck is just lacking a little bit in the early game to efficiently and effectively deal with the speed of Emerald decks right now. And it should be a fairly easy like kind of fix. I think Lao has a really good like kind of uh, core in his deck. I think if he added some Gastons or some other like kind of different early game pressure or like cards that can remove or deal with opponent's board state, it actually can go quite a ways way to kind of get him set up for the Maurices. But I think the other big issue of what happened in these two games is that uh Lao really did not. Oh, sorry. I see Lao. Hey, my bad, Lao. I just saw your name there. And I invited you. But hey, Lao.
Hey, you hear
Hey,
me?
yep. I hear you loud and clear. I was
Oh,
about to.
and the item deck falls.
Yeah, I was about to say, the other kind of downfall was I don't think you saw a single copy of Maurice in that entire
Hey.
two games. Hey, Franz. Hey, how did you how were you able to just hop onto the main stage? Uh,
Oh,
privileged?
I got an accept. I don't know.
Oh,
Someone invited me, and I just clicked accept.
oh, cool. It wasn't me, so
That's probably allowed
magic.
then.
Yep. Totally. So great to have you guys on. It's a little bit of a kind of last minute streaming and commentary. So thanks for
Yeah.
just reaching out, letting me know you guys were starting. And so I was just mentioning that I'm gonna try to record this. I don't know how it goes. Hopefully, it wasn't too laggy on the main stage. But yeah, just hardware. I never thought I would be kind of doing as much with hardware as I'm doing right now, but should have foreseen it with how popular Lorcana is, I guess. But yeah, great matches. So kind of tossing the mic to both players. How did you guys feel about that match? Did your decks try to do everything they were designed to do? I know Franz, you run the Emerald Amethyst package because Emerald is great to kind of like pressure your opponent, and Amethyst is just great for card draw. And card draw seems to be kind of a theme of Lao, like if he can get enough card draw with his deck, can definitely become like much more threatening. But it's kind of just a bit hard early game to kind of figure out what to ink, get the cards that he needs, and that sort of stuff. So, what are your
Yes.
guys' thoughts on it?
So when I came in this matchup and I specifically looked at Lao's list, I saw that specifically for my Emerald package and my slight early game package, he doesn't necessarily have an out to Flynn unless he plays Tala and Mickey or ramps into a Maui on
Yep.
turn 3 or 4.
Yep.
Which in turn, if he does that, then Maui is in range of Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Which is actually one of the biggest reasons why Amethyst I think is really good in this deck is the turn 3 Elsa into turn 4 Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
However, against the the Ruby control decks that doesn't necessarily do anything. So those two cards don't necessarily get as much play or glory as I want to in those matchups, unless they're going like turn 4 Street Rat and then projecting out to a turn 5 shift into Heroic Outlaw. But overall, what I was trying to do in this matchup is because Flynn doesn't have an answer. Flynn's probably going to get at least 4, maybe 6 lore. I was just trying to curve out into a 2, 3, 4, and 5 while trying to keep my Kuzcos as tight to my chest as possible for once he gets up into the 5 and 6 range. So I can like kind of suss out whether or not he has a Be Prepared. I think you saw it. You actually saw it in one of the last turns, like without Kuzco. The way he played the apple into the Hades on my board of 2 cards. From that, I can garner that he doesn't have the last Be Prepared. So I was pretty safe to just play down the I think it was the Hans the Hans on the last turn to threaten, even if he had a way to remove 1 card, which is so essentially this matchup I'm trying to get upwards in the 15 to 18 range. So I can essentially just run out his single target removals and start to be like, okay, you need to draw all 4 of your Be Prepareds, and I need to not draw all of my Kuzcos. And if I like you saw in this last match, like getting to 18 and then half my deck threatens at 18 or more. So
it's just it's a top deck battle that Control never wants to be in.
Exactly. Like it's a top deck battle, and I was talking to Lau about it during the game too, because now that I have his deck list, I was counting out the amount of single target removals he had left. So it's like, all right, you have 1 Be Prepared left, and then you have 9 other cards that remove things that isn't Poison Apple or Sword.
So when I was commentating, I was completely unprepared for the fact that Mother Gothel was a villain. Swords could remove, because I feel like most of the time, Swords and Apples doesn't do much against your deck. So
Swords takes out a decent amount of my deck with Yzma, Yzma, Hans
from the Amethyst. Hans is
John
a villain,
Silver, and Mother Gothel.
Got it. Notably, the goons, Horace and Jasper are not villains, which is kind of ironic,
which is
there.
Interesting. Yeah.
But
oh well.
Yeah. How about you, Lau? How are you feeling about, I guess, like your deck in general now, having played it through the tournament? Congratulations for doing super well, by the way. And potentially, like, any now that you've kind of put it through the ringer, I forgot, I think you had mentioned like potentially like some changes, especially like since you came the meta was so different, or like the kind of the state of the game was so different when you created this deck. Any particular kind of thoughts, like is this a deck that you're going to want to kind of create in real life with some tweaks, maybe add a little bit of kind of early game, because Emerald and Amber is so popular nowadays? That's there.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to build this deck in real life. I will be honest, after getting, my small allocation from the game store and looking at the price of singles, I have about $400 to $500 left to go. Before I can build it, or additional products. So it might not happen for a while. But I think it's a lot of fun. I probably at the conclusion of this tournament landed. It's not a tier S deck, but I don't think. I don't know. It's somewhere like high tier B, low tier A to me. I think I've accomplished my goal of getting it on the map and making an item deck that is somewhat viable.
And I
Cool.
I
And
appreciate getting the item slinger's name out there where I could not have.
yeah, it's just letting people know, like,
Yeah.
watch out for it. It might come and get you. I do think there's changes. Meta dependent. I think I'd mentioned last time. I think let it go in most cases is probably fine. I've seen some other decks go around or out there that are running off a similar concept, just with some differences, which I think are interesting. In these particular matches, I guess I like looking at the odds of pitching all 7 cards. It's like 70% to get the 1 card, but man, does that turn 2 Flynn come down every game.
Yeah,
And it is really rough to deal.
it's so brutal.
I think I felt pretty good about the first game until there was one spot where I had the Reckless Mal. He had 3 cards on board. I didn't really have a way to deal with the genie. And I had to be prepared, and I had like the apple, like I had some like answers to the board. I could like bow Flynn and sword. Anyway, silver. I went with the be prepared, and then he had the Cusco, and turns out he had 2 more Cusco. So I don't know that it actually matters.
So
No,
But it was
third
very
Cusco
close.
did it. Yeah.
yeah.
It was
So yeah.
very close.
The other thing kind of I recently, so when you contacted me, Lau, about you and Franz was playing, I actually just got done playing 4 games on Pixelborn against apparently a new and kind of like this deck was not on my radar. It's an Amber Sapphire deck. And kind of what it does is it utilizes Amber's card draw with Rapunzel and Big Stitch, and Sapphire's kind of shenanigans with like shifting Aurora and stuff to really kind of do some crazy stuff. And so kind of unprepared for the first 2 games. I was running kind of a control list, and I lost the first 2 games, and the second game I lost was because specifically there's this really jank interesting combo where turn 1 you play out any 2/2 character, and then turn 2 you play out an Aurora. And so in my second game that I lost, I was like, oh, awesome, okay, super simple. Turn 1 he played out a Stitch. Turn 2 he played out Aurora. I actually went first, so I'm on my turn 3. The Stitch is exerted, so I run into that. I play a Rafiki and run into that Stitch with my Rafiki. And do you know how I got super punished out of nowhere for doing that? The opponent shifted the Aurora into Dreaming Guardian, killed my Rafiki, and was perfectly set up for a turn 4 Rapunzel. To draw 3 cards off of that damage that the Dreaming Guardian collected. And so after that, I had learned my lesson for like turn 3, do not attack and leave a Aurora a possible Dreaming Guardian shift that can run into my Rafiki there. But having said that, I think at the very least, Lau, your deck with kind of the removal and like a little, not so much early game presence, but kind of like the items to banish the princesses and stuff would absolutely crush like a deck like that, where they're just essentially kind of hoping to rely on Rapunzel's for card draw to fill up, and running a little bit of ramp, and some kind of Stitch shenanigans there. But
Maybe it's time in the middle will come.
I was gonna
It may
say
show up.
it's everything's shifting, right? Like new decks come out to deal with kind of current meta, and because these new decks come out, like things that aren't as viable now, can absolutely come onto the radar and become super viable later. And so much of it is like just trying to figure out what your opponent wants to do and is trying to do. And sometimes like with decks like yours, it can be pretty hard to figure out what you're trying to do, and you can catch an opponent pretty unprepared there. I think part of the reason why a lot of people like kind of know is like your deck, now that it's on the radar, like if I see Lau playing something where like he's playing Grandma Tala or something like that, I know like okay, he's gonna try to like have these apples and swords and Maurice's there, right? But before, like when it was on people's radar, I bet you like they probably misplayed a lot more often into your deck in there.
I do think there's some surprise factor going into
Yeah.
going with a deck like this,
Yeah.
where people are like, "What the heck? Like Mother Gothel's a villain? What?" You know,
Yeah.
get that kind of reaction a lot. Like, yep, you gotta read your cards.
Indeed.
How about you, Franz? I know. So did you already have this deck built out, or are you still missing a few pieces? I think the last we talked, you collected all of oh shoot, what was it? The John Silvers that you needed, right?
Yeah, this deck was finished actually at Gen Con.
Oh, nice.
Now I'm trying to foil it out, so I'm about like 65% of foiled out.
How many foil John Silvers do you have?
2.
2? Nice.
Yes.
Dang. I mean, are you planning on playing like a constructed like tournament or something with a foil like deck?
The unfortunate part is like there's a constructed event tomorrow, like 45 minutes away from me, but I cannot make it. I have prior obligations, and then next week I'm out of town, so I won't really be able to play constructed with my stuff until like middle of September, probably. And then Miami, I don't think I'm playing this deck. I think I'm playing a different deck. One of three different choices, but
makes a lot
I'll
of
still have
sense.
this. I do enjoy it.
Yeah, I was just about to say it's probably a good thing that like you need a couple more weeks before you can start playing constructed, because it gives your opponents a little bit more time to collect the cards they need and give you a little bit more of a challenge. I feel like that's similar.
I want those free packs. What are you talking about?
No, but
I want to play against a 10-year-old with a starter deck with two starter decks mashed together.
No, but at the very least, you'll have that bling factor going for you. Like
100%.
you'll dazzle your opponent with like, whoa, how many?
There are some really nice foils in this deck. I really like Cusco. I really like
Zeus. Right, Zeus is a great
Zeus is
foil.
really good. Yeah. See, I pulled a 4-cost Hades foil the other day, and that might be one of my favorite foils in the set. And I need to play a deck with him in it now, because like the river Styx in front of the 4-cost Hades is all golden and shiny. It's really cool.
Got it. Very awesome. Cool. As always, we kind of turn it over to our players. If you have any kind of last words, if you want to plug your socials, anything exciting or interesting going on, feel free to let us know. Let's start with Lau first. So you're not super new to the rodeo, but we always give people the opportunity. So, yep.
Yeah, no. I'll plug again. Like I said, I'm not super big on social medias out there, but you can, if I'm out there, it's Lau. Pretty unique name, so you should be able to find me. Where you will find me more frequently, or at least you'll be able to contact me or see what I'm doing, is through Clairmancy Games, which I am a co-owner of. We've launched a project, Worn Wanders. We completed a successful Kickstarter, and we're working through the manufacturing and production and everything to get that out to our backers. So if you're interested in a wearable game that uses pins and cards that you can play while you're walking around, then reach out to me or find us through Clairmancy Games or Worn Wanders.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Lau, for everything entertaining. And hopefully, we'll catch you around. Do stream some more of your games in kind of future tournaments and everything.
Yeah, I will. I will try and be back. I'll try and make something else. Make the crappy decks good or get some light. And I know that I've actually been on a few other YouTube videos that have released or not yet released. So if you see videos about the item deck, you can go check those out. They're various content creators. It's been cool to bring some steam to an archetype, and it's been a lot of fun. So I hope I can continue doing so.
Awesome, awesome. All right, and Franz, your turn.
All right. I am Franz from Traverse Tavern. You can find me in here in my Discord under Traverse Tavern /Franz. Twitter is Traverse Tavern, and YouTube channel Traverse Tavern as well. As soon as the event is over, I'll either be making a video specifically a Meta Monday on this deck specifically, or I'll be doing a full video recapping my tournament run, recapping what I would change, what I wouldn't change, matchups, stuff like that, as well as what I see for this deck in the future, as well as how I felt about the tournament as a whole. I appreciate you all following and everything like that. Please, I appreciate all the likes, comments, and subscriptions. And I will see you guys next time at the Traverse Tavern.
Awesome, very much, and thank you so much, Franz. We will hopefully be casting some more of your games, and best of luck as you kind of make your way to the semifinals now, right? So, yup. And kind of just to close things off, I'm Jillinen. You can find me here on YouTube as Jillinen or JGoo. And on Twitter, X as #Jillinen. And I do typically try to put out kind of gameplay, mostly on Pixelborn, that sort of stuff. And I am always interested in kind of casting, and definitely feel free to send me feedback. And just really enjoy providing content to everyone and just help people kind of understand a little bit more about kind of maybe more on the competitive side of Lorcana, help them with deck creating and just different play styles. And I really want to see kind of Lorcana as this really awesome kind of game that has a lot of diverse strategies and people playing it, and just trying to make people's knowledge a little bit greater, and I guess jobs running a good deck a little bit easier there. So hope to catch everyone around, and have a great evening, everyone. And I think what I will end up doing is taking a look at what I have for video, and either linking it or like kind of providing some sort of kind of a way for people who aren't able to kind of catch this live on here to be able to see kind of this first matchup in the top 8. So take care, everyone. Have a great evening.